Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at the 2022 Virtual Symbiam Spring Convention. I'm really happy to see so many shiny faces this morning, and especially seeing lots of students in the crowd. I think that's fantastic. We really appreciate your support of Symbiam and registering for the conference. We are hopefully doing our last virtual convention. Hopefully we will be in person again soon. So I look forward to the opportunity to see you all in real life again at some point. Wanted to talk a little bit, do a little housekeeping. So today we have two tracks. We have a sales track with Kelly Wurgis from ProMax Training, and then we have sort of an operations strategy track with sessions on social selling and analytics and fundraising. I think you should all have the Zoom link PDF file that we sent out. I'm going to drop it in this chat again, just in case you can't find it, so you have it. You know, as always, Symbiam is a learning experience for everybody. So if you have any questions, you know, please feel free to drop them in the chat as we go throughout, you know, all the sessions, including our keynote we're about to start, and we will make sure that they get answered. One thing we're doing this year a little bit differently, maybe, we've created a hallway that will open up at 1 p.m. And the hallway is sort of a place to hang out and talk about whatever you want to talk about with whoever. So, you know, if Nikki says something that I have a question about, I'm going to ask her to pop into the hallway so we can keep talking about it. It's also a place to hang out in between sessions. There should be, you know, about a 10-minute break in between sessions so we can all refill our water and refresh for a couple of seconds. So if you want, you can always just go into that hallway and hang out a little bit in between sessions. Again, for those just popped in, if you don't mind changing the name of your Zoom account to have your first name and your school, I would appreciate it. And okay, let's get started. So I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Richard Brown. I'm really looking forward to this keynote. I don't know about a lot of you, but I still read magazines. And a couple months ago, I was reading a column by Richard Brown. And I was like, oh, it's talking about sales forecasting and how you can sort of even out your peaks and valleys in the sales process. And I was really impressed by it. And I was like, okay, I need to start doing this again. Now COVID's over. We actually have sales again. And I've got a team selling. And I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. And then I kind of went down a little bit of a Richard Brown rabbit hole, and I started Googling and watching YouTube videos on some training he's done. And I thought, this is a pretty young guy to have all this media experience on the business side. So I reached out on LinkedIn and I was like, hey, do you want to lead a session for our group? He was like, sure. And I was like, I also have this conference coming up. What do you think about helping out with that? And he was so excited to do it. And so I'm excited that Richard's joining us. To give you a little bit of a formal background, Richard is currently the head of digital subscriber churn for Gannett. And I'm going to let him explain that. But before that, he was the digital director of operations at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. And before that, he was head of digital sales strategy at LPI, where I think that's where you did a lot of that training that I was stalking you on. So anyway, I'm going to cut this short, Richard. I think that's pretty good. Everybody, Richard Brown.
Hi, everybody, and thank you. That was way more than I deserve, I'm sure, for sure. And Catherine is right. She asked, and I was elated to talk to you guys because there is just so much stuff that I want to share and talk to you guys about. And it's important. I was like, I don't want anybody else. I want to do this because, you know, as it exists today, my role is basically to oversee all of the basically subscriber cancel and processes and help out with retention in any way I can for anybody who is inevitably trying to leave or cancel their subscriptions with USA Today Network and all the consortium. So basically all of the news organizations around the country, and also too just USA Today itself. So I kind of act as this big funnel and sifter, and being able to basically do a lot of data analytics. It takes a lot of consumer psychology. It takes a lot of, obviously, marketing, somewhat intuitiveness, but it takes a lot of empathy to kind of understand where people are at, what they're going through, how to make things simple, keeping up with laws, making sure that things are, easy for people to do, but also to leveraging that point of context of being able to do your best to retain your business at the same time. So, she mentioned a lot of digital stuff, my background and whatnot, and also basically in sales and operations and finance. And I kind of explained to Catherine at one point, I kind of am like this purple squirrel. Just was always taught that. I've had a lot of great mentors that have said, like, just learn everything you can about news media. And it's been kind of just a great experience and career so far. But it's exactly because of that you kind of have this passion for helping others. And the truth of the matter is, one of the reasons I was so excited is because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a big believer in the universe giving to those who give to the universe, right? So I'm like, this is my opportunity. I want to give back to you guys like everything that I know. And it starts with this one kind of nugget of truth that I've discovered about me in this industry. And it's really just this compassion, for being a community servant. Really, that's really what it is. It's just like, I just want to help however I can. I just want to help. I just want to help. I just want to help. And if I can do anything to kind of like leave something in a better situation than it was, so that for the next person, they can come in and make it their own and preserve the legacy of things that have been built, and then I've done my job. I'm happy about it. So you guys being on the cusp and the brink of that, if not already in it, I was like, let me like lay out some stuff that I know and just give it to you guys in all types of measurable forms. But for today, I just wanted to talk about that concept of what a gift it is and how it's kind of impacted my career, and some things that I've noticed and have grown to understand about leveraging that gift throughout your career, so that it kind of propels you with some type of initial fire to kind of like, relight your engine every day. That being said, hi. There is a lot of stuff going on, and here is where I want to start today. The first thing I want to ask, or just at least throw out there, is, let me share my screen first. Can you guys all see me? See the screen? The first thing that I want to kind of go through first is just, how are you guys? And I don't, it's not tongue in cheek. It's not like this kind of, it's a very real thing. It's a very real thing for me, because there's so much going on, man. There's so much going on. There's so many things in our society and just human society, the evolution of what we're going through. We get through it every day, right? We just do things every day. And I'm like, there are literal, inhumane, like humanity crisis going on. There's financial crisis going on. There's so many things kind of happening. And we're just going through, the monotony of that day sometimes. I'm like, just check in with yourself, because you are needed right now. And I'm going to tell you why. Like, it's a very big deal that you self-preserve that mental state, because if you don't process how you're feeling in a given time, it'll weigh on you and it'll come out in different ways. But you have to kind of like just meet yourself where you're at sometimes and say, hey, I don't like how I feel about this. And I'm gonna show you why this is a part of that compassion piece too, because it has to drive the behavior a little bit. Understanding what's going on in society is a very big deal for society as a whole. And we are kind of responsible for that. We're responsible for providing that context as to what is going on in the world, so that society can kind of process what's going on to help them get through the day, and to still kind of like, instill that sense of hope, prosperity, optimism throughout their day as they kind of go through things. So it's a very big deal that you're always there and kind of doing your check-ins and things like that, because you just have to, right? And to that effect, I want to say thank you, because if you have not heard it from anyone, I don't care if it's, your colleagues, peers, family, whatever the case might be, a lot of you are either in the mix every day or about to be in the mix every day. And thank you for this, because it's a very big deal. You're about to embark on this journey, or you're in this journey where you are a community steward. You have to be dedicated to this concept. And it's kind of one of these things where, like, it's not about nobility even sometimes. I know it's simple to say, I'm doing this for the regal. No, I'm doing this because literally I have had friends in the trenches, man. I've had friends who are in news, in content. And, we know people right now who are in Ukraine. We know people right now, but, these are friends, these are neighbors. What you're doing right now is helping society kind of tell those stories of those people. I don't care if you're in finance, I don't care if you're in marketing, sales, all of it, the distribution, all of it is in helping to deliver that content to people. And that is a very, very big deal right now. People will default to who they trust. And right now, you're most likely the most trusted medium within your society. And one of those key points there, thank you. Just thank you for everything you guys are doing, okay? Now, endurance. That's a harder thing, because to get up and do this every day, you kind of have to. Now more than ever, especially because it's going to kind of like weigh on you, right? I was telling somebody just a little bit ago, I was like, when you're looking at news content, in general, like, there are daunting stories, there are things like that, but you kind of have to help people contextualize it in order for them to kind of, like I said, do their realizations of life, and kind of like, it actually kind of enriches those moments of positivity even more so because you understand where you've been. But as you're embarking upon your news media career and your journey, you're going to have a lot of ideas. You're going to have a lot of ideas. You're going to have, and you kind of have to have this built-in fortitude, this structure around you that is like, I am going to bring it every day because I know there are people counting on me to deliver this content. I'm going to bring it every day because I believe in the concept of what we're doing in community stewardship. I'm going to deliver this. I'm going to bring it every day because news media is a structural part, an integral part of society that kind of has to remain somewhat, objective and not somewhat objective and unbiased, and therefore I'm going to do my part, but it will take a toll on you, right? It'll take a toll on you because you're gonna, you got to come with it, and it does take a different personality type. And I think that everybody on this call is most likely that personality type. But make sure that you do all things in hand. So again, thank you. Take care of your mental state, check in with yourself, be honest with yourself. If you're not feeling stuff, reach out to me even. I don't care, dude. Like, just, Rich, man, I'm just having trouble processing this. What's up? What's going on? Let's talk. Because I've been there, man, and I know what it can do. And at the end of the day, I appreciate what you do. This is the true story of why I was so committed and wanted, I'll just beg and cast, like, let me do this keynote, because I don't think if you have not been told that, you need to be told that. Here's the gift, okay? I labeled this presentation the gift of responsibility because it is both. It is both a gift, which is very it's very rewarding. It does enrich you. It does kind of like, put you in the thick of a lot of things that kind of happen. But in essence, we're kind of the storytellers of human society, right? We're that account in time. We're the people who kind of speak for those voices for people who don't get a voice all the time. So you have to kind of take this as a bit of a shrine, because you're like, look, I am a literal walking embodiment of, the chronicle of what's going on in our society right now. And therefore I have to remain, down this path because it's important. It'll be important for future generations to kind of understand the concepts of what was going on right now so that they can leverage their futures and understand like what happened in history. Obviously, it's a lot more robust as far as, what we're able to deliver as far as communication. But at the end of the day, that is the gift. Your gift in time right now is to tell this story. And no matter what avenue or what, departmental concept that you focus on in your organization, that is the gift, to make sure that you have a healthy financial organization, that you are robust in your delivery, and at the end of the day, that you're delivering content to the general public and within your community, within your region, within your state, whatever the case might be, to the nation, that consumers, people, humans know what's going on in this time so they can contextualize and process what's going on in this time, but also too that we can chronicle the time going forward in society and understanding exactly what's going on. It's important, right? I have all people understand knowing your own history. I'm sure everyone in this call does too. This is a big part of what we do and what we attribute to society. Cool. Now, we have to preserve it because, it's going to enhance, it's going to change. Things are going to be different. I had a president one time tell me, Richard, I don't care if we're delivering news on a hologram, stay with the first part, deliver the information, right? However we are, Jetsons, whatever the case might be, make sure that it's there because it will transform. But your message, your heart, your fire that drives you still has to be there. You have to have compassion for other people. You have to have compassion for society. You have to have compassion for your community. I'm not saying that you have to, just overdo it and not, leverage this to kind of like, benefit yourself, which I'll talk to you about in a bit. But there is a bit of a fire that you have to kind of understand that there's a bigger concept at play. It helps in all avenues too, especially in sales, right? Because when you're talking to local businesses, you're saying a concept of like, look, this is what I am. This is who I do. And this is why my followers and my subscribers kind of like, why I have the subscriptions. What do you do? Because I want to tell that same story in order to enrich your business and therefore can enrich our community. So there's a definite tie there as to kind of like how you can leverage this between every department that you work in within the organization. That being the case, we have to embolden the perspective and we have to fuel that outlook into what the future state of news media is going to be. It is going to look different eventually. It's going to feel different. And a part of that is because of everybody on this everybody on this call today, because you're going to develop as society develops. You're going to change. Platforms will look different. Mediums will look different. But the content, to be honest with you, will probably even like evolve in itself, but the mission will always kind of like stay the same. I tell people all the time, we're kind of the embodiment of the new era, right? We're living in it, right? And a lot of us are either going to or we're already there, or we're living in a time where we're working with multiple generations. It's kind of rare, to be honest with you. It's, you're going to be doing a lot of different things, and you kind of have to take that time to develop an appreciation and understand exactly what has come before you. And also to take on the responsibility of how you want that to look going forward, right? That's why endurance is important. You're going to have to like deliver your ideas in a full context or a large body audience to kind of make sure that you can like connect so that your ideas do get implemented eventually, so that your ideas are taken seriously because you are showing the compassion for the future. I still have a long-term ton of work. So if anybody's dedicated to the future of what we do, it is me. And I'm telling you guys, your opinions, your outlook, your strategies, everything that you can think of, it matters because it's going to evolve over time. You're going to develop your own skill sets. You're going to develop your own attributes that you bring to the table. And a lot of those are actually literally going to set the course for how news media looks in the future, period. It only takes an idea, man. But I'm like, you have to be ready and willing to like drive it home every day because things change, and they change in an instant. So you got to be ready to take that step up. Hey, look, such and such, they're retiring. Such and such is leaving. Such and such. You got to take on that role, right? Hey, look, okay, now it's ready. Mold that future however you want it to, but the responsibility is still there. You kind of have that platform now to kind of like make sure that the concept of content delivery within our democracy is upheld and it has that regalness and honesty about it. I struggle with this a little bit. I think that this is important to note because news media is in this state of transition where it understands its legacy actually almost too well. The embarking of what's new and what's to come, it's scary. It's different. It's not like it's print is, it's a high margin concept, right? And digital has a high margin as well, but it's the evolution of where we're going. So always make sure that you kind of understand where we are to get there and learn every avenue of the business so that you can inevitably like do this. change for a generation. I learned this early in my career. I was very fortunate, like I said, to have great mentors, but you're always going to be held against numbers, right? In some way, shape, or form. I don't care what department you're in. For the year, where you become a dynamite leader and where you become an effective, magnet within this medium, is where you can actually change things for generation. It has to start, I believe, from the compassion of what you're doing, especially in this medium. But everything you do should be within the breath of like, how am I going to change this, not just for this quarter, but you know what? We're not going to have this problem anymore. We're not going to have this issue anymore because I am going to implement something that's going to change the way we do things for a very long time. It's bold, right? It takes a lot of understanding, a lot of history, and a lot of knowledge. But at the end of the day, when you get to that point where you know it back and forth, you know every department, you know the workings of everything, you understand exactly how things should flow, how revenue hits the bottom line, how readers engage with content, how we affect the community, you can actually start to kind of make those bold statements and actually deep dive into exactly why it's going to be effective. And it all starts with you. Content's going to be delivered differently. Like I said, like, are you going to be that person that's going to embark on that new content delivery medium? It can be difficult, but it's our duty, and we got to make sure that we are committed to it. Okay, it's a very big responsibility. I don't want to say it as like, oh, he's saying it just because, I'm not. I worked for a few different media. I worked for Berkshire Hathaway before. It's a very big deal to make sure that you understand just how vast and robust news media is, and exactly what it means to society. So, but you can master that, you can have a hell of a career. So, speaking of careers, here is what I kind of suggest to people. As Catherine said, I've done a lot early in my career, but it's, some of it is luck. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Some of it is just, you just see, capitalize on opportunities, right? Seize the day, all that stuff is true, but it really was more about, for me, having a comfortability with ambiguity sometimes. You're not going to always have the right answer. You're not going to always have the exacts, right? But I was committed to the idea of learning. I was committed to the idea of like, I am just going to enhance my skill sets. I am going to own who I am and just, mold into that. I'm going to look at people and mentors and things like that. And I'm just going to figure out the attributes that I absolutely love and the attributes that I don't. And I'm going to kind of just, figure that out. And I think that once I did, I slowly started to understand what it is that I brought of value to the table, that others didn't. Not that it was a knock on anybody. It was just like, I really wanted to make sure that, at some point I took on that responsibility, right? That I was okay with doing that because I had been taught by some great leaders and colleagues and just my family, just people who always kind of have my back, because I go through a lot of mental things too, ups and downs, who am I in this medium? I even get this a lot. I don't look like a whole lot of people that you may think that traditional news media looks like, right? So, I struggle with that too. And then I eventually got to this point where once I started to understand my value, I said, you know what? I am going to recreate the future in my image as to who I am. I'm going to stay true to that. I didn't, I got to a point where I just wanted to be so much who I was that it was almost impossible to not just, hey, look, he has something about him, right? And I was okay with that. Once I started to do that, I owned it. Things just started to come a little bit more naturally and easier. And I just, you gain confidence, and I'm okay with that, right? And it also puts you in a place where you can actually start to position yourself for where you want to be, right? I tell people all the time, especially when I'm interviewing, with candidates who either come work for me or anything like that. But I'm like, look, this isn't just an interview for you. It's an interview, it's an interview for me too. Do you like me? Do you want to be here? And I think that when I started to do that to people who I was interviewing with, I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable in being who I was, and no, this place just doesn't fit for me or something like that. you have to kind of prolongate your happiness too and sustainability within this medium, because the responsibility is still there. It doesn't go away, you know, and you have to have that fire and compassion every day. So you have to kind of understand, like, at the end of the day, I'm about this. This is what I want to do. This is an organization that I can get behind. A lot of you on this call are actually responsible for news content, for organizational, like, you know, profit, for revenue, for the well-being of other people, right? And you want to make sure that you're the most effective leaders possible by, you know, being one of empathy, understanding where people are, being able to kind of motivate people to get to their goals, things like that. But you can't do it if you don't feel it, right? If you're not like in that, you know, you're not. And sometimes people are different. Some people get motivated by different things. You have to understand who you are and know your value so that you can actually amplify it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know, I'm no good if I can't, you know, if I can't tell you on concepts that I believe in. And I'm no good if I can't really like develop others, you know, either that report directly to me or my colleagues or even my, you know, upper management. I'm like, I always want to make sure that whoever I touch or communicate with, they've taken something away that's like, okay, you know, I didn't love everything you said, but I like this part. And I'm now going to take this, amplify it, because who knows, that one communication touch point might be literally just the thing that they take home and they have a great night, have a great weekend, that they have a great year. Literally just the thing that they needed to hear because they've been having such a rough time at things, literally, you know, or whatever, maybe personally or professionally, you know, like, just, you have to kind of know that you have the ability in some way, shape, or form to enhance something. And I think that it's either, you know, with the skill sets you have, or just, you know, your natural ability to just kind of like communicate, you have to be able to like understand who you are. Now, that being said, I laid on this presentation a quick like 4-point touch point that I just suggested to kind of like just understanding who you are and understand and the journey to like knowing your value. Try and discover everything you can about yourself. What do you like doing? What's the concept that you like the most, right? Because you have to set the state of the tune for the future state of news media, right? So first of all, just commit to continuously learning about news media. Everything you can, like, just, you know, in particular about your departments, the logistics of how things work, how things impact bottom line. You know, I think that it not only kind of like teaches you like, okay, the inner workings of news media business, but it also teaches you how to engage with other people. You're going to deal with a lot of different people ongoing all the time. And therefore, it's up to you to be able to kind of like understand, like, okay, you know, what are those communication triggers that, you know, you need to turn on for whatever audience. Delivery is always kind of like a big deal for me, because the efficacy of how I communicate is ultimately how things get done. Going back to that purple squirrel analogy, one of the things that I was always taught by my mentors was, Richard, you always be what you feel is missing. So, you know, they're like, Richard, you know, you're a sales guy, but you're a digital guy, but you're a marketing guy, but you're also an operations guy, and you understand financial statements. So when I was talking with, like, you know, folks in IT, very good at assessing kind of like this and say, look, this is our problem. Okay, how are we now going to communicate that to folks in sales? Different personality types, right? Sales is always great at like basically delivering a message of like, hey, you know, we have this thing and it can do this and this and this. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. They also need to understand the tactical concept of implementation, how we actually do things, right? We can't just kind of be somewhat ambiguous on like what we're telling them. Like, you know, let's be efficient too and tell them how we're going to go about it. Marketing ops, always great at ideation, always great at like, you know, design concepts. Implementation and organization of that strategy was always something I was missing. So once you kind of understand into the departmental functions, you begin to kind of like piece things together in every conversation, and therefore it makes you a more effective leader in that, like, okay, well, if we're doing this, I know what finance is going to ask, so let me make sure that this is okay, or, you know, whatever the case might be. You just kind of can move things forward a little bit more efficiently. Understand your passions quickly. You know, like news media is great because it's kind of like a weird allegory for like the society in general. But if you can figure out what you're passionate about, you can literally be a great fit in one department and not be a great fit in another. And I know that sounds simple, like everybody, it's with any organization, but news media has a bit of a family vibe to it, where it's like, you know what, this person is a great asset, but I think they're better at this than they are at this particular job, or I think they can grow into this than they are versus where they are right now. So the better that you are at understanding, I like building out product, but more so I like doing the design aspect of product, not the strategy aspect of product development. That's a thing. Make sure you understand like what you like doing. I like sales, but in a way that's not necessarily correlated to dealing with businesses, but dealing with consumers. That's a different thing. I can kind of keep going. I like, I like working with numbers, but I don't necessarily like to be the one that has to communicate them. So am I an analyst or am I like projection? Like it depends. So like make sure that you understand exactly who you are and understanding that value, but you kind of have to own those points of what you want, what you truly do enjoy every day and you're passionate about. Know the audiences, and I kind of spoke on this just a little bit ago, but understanding like who those people are that you're communicating to and being able to kind of like factor in how to ultimately and eloquently communicate your point so that you can officially get something done. It has a big impact. It might not seem like it, but it's a very big deal. Even in, the slightest of conversations, understanding what you're communicating, how direct or how, how you have to walk people through things is going to matter, because sometimes you're dealing with personalities who do need more of I need to kind of like really understand the full scope. Sometimes you're going to be dealing with people who are like, just give me the, high level points. Understand that and understand how to communicate things effectively, and always be yourself. This will actually cover about 70 to 80% of the happiness. Number 4 should probably be number 1, because it kind of bounces you into everything else. If you're just committed to just be yourself, be your authentic self, therefore you can better hone your skill sets as to who you are. Therefore you can better understand, I'm my authentic self. This is how I like to communicate, but it may not be the way that other people like to be communicated to. So let me understand that more about myself. It just makes a big deal to your overall happiness and well-being. The first place that you go is important. It could be one of these situations where you end up having a great mentor, you end up having a great colleagues, teams, whatever the case might be, but you're going to learn a lot in the first organization that you're in. I know a lot of you are students, but and you're going into that path. This is why I kind of like put this out there, but it's okay to be selective. There's a lot of opportunity in the market. There's going to continue to be a lot of opportunity in the market because you are in demand. Don't ever let anybody say you are in demand. And I don't care how old you are or what, it doesn't matter. You're in demand. If you're dedicated to the craft, you're compassionate, and you actually can commit to the things that I've laid out in this presentation, it will come across in any interview, in any conversation with any organization that you have. That being said, it's okay to be selective about who you want your first manager to be, who you want your first organization to be with, what type of environment do you want to be in. It's a little bit more structured as far as like having a legacy of things that were kind of like, already in place. Is a little bit more like, okay, an agency model where, they're developing things that's new. We're kind of like in the trenches every day. You're doing a little bit more of less strategy and more of like I'm in the trenches with people doing reports and pulling stats and actually communicating. Maybe you're, like doing a lot of things, communicating with advertisers. I'm working with, subscribers. I'm dealing with finance, like whatever the case might be. Whoever you go to first is important. It will literally be your propeller as to like how you see things going forward and where you can go going forward, with your career path. I'm not saying that any organization has, any goods or bads over any other organization. I'm saying to select the one that best suits you so that you can kind of like propel yourself forward, which is kind of why I wanted to illustrate, know yourself and your value first, because you might not necessarily want to be with a smaller organization right away. Maybe you need a larger one to kind of help you learn more of the ropes. Maybe you don't want to be on a large organization. You want to be in a smaller one to basically kind of like feel more connected to the work that you're doing. Not to say you can't with a bigger organization, but just understand that like, that's a big deal. Like I said, I was lucky and somewhat, just through the grace of, I happen to have some great mentors early on in my career. And they kind of set the tone for me as to what type of leader I ultimately end up being. And they were just great. They were really great at just knowing people. And that's who I was. I just wanted to know people, and I wanted to have a genuine understanding of people. And I think that kind of like is another reason why I'm here today. Like I care. It's going to sound a little, sappy, but I do. I care about everybody on this call. I just do. I'm not taking away from. I do. I'm compassionate and committed to this industry that's treating me well. But I care about you guys because I'm like, if I don't tell you this, you might not get told this, right? That was the type of leadership that I was under, and therefore I'm giving back to the universe. So, build your brand. Another big point. You're going to learn to establish yourself in whatever organization you are as a go-to in some way, shape, or form. You guys are already leaders within your own rights of what you're doing today. Inevitably, you're going to have a brand generated around you just from basic perception. Oh, Catherine is this. She's always that person who you can rely on to get this done. She's always that person who always has that great insight, whatever the case might be. Understand that brand so that you can amplify that out to the masses as you develop throughout your career. What are you good at? What are you effective at? What do you bring to the table as far as being able to kind of like impact something, whether in society, whether in a community, whether in the bottom line of our revenue, whether in sales, whatever the case might be. Understand what it is and amplify it and own it. And it's okay. This took me a long time to understand too, where I was like, I just want to do everything and learn everything. And then I started to discover there were certain niches and pockets that I was more comfortable with, that I was more, connected with and tethered with because of who I was as a person and the tutelage that I came under as far as my mentorships and what I was able to learn throughout my career. You're going to learn a lot of different things throughout your career that are not necessarily like readily available in a lot of organizations. You're going to learn concepts. You're going to be a part of projects. You're going to be on different committees and task groups and things like that. So you're going to learn a lot of things that you're going to start to eventually figure out they're not readily available. So that is in itself an extremely valuable experience. And they go back to that's why the first step that you take in your career is very important. As you kind of like maneuver through your career, keep that context with you as to the things that you've been a part of and that you've learned and you've developed, because it will propel you in your conversations later in your career with, interviewers and all that stuff, but also too, just in the positions that you're in. I actually still refer back to things that I've done like 6, 7, 9, 10 years ago, whatever the case might be, because it was a nugget there that I learned at some point in time that applies to things today. I had I had a president who would tell me, he would always like leave these little nuggets of wisdom. And at the time I hated. He'd always say things to me like, Richard, I'm never going to tell you what to do, but it better be the right answer. Right. And I used to hate it because it was his way of telling me, I'm going to let you lead a strategy, but it's up to you to be committed to learning everything you can first so that you can make a decision as to how we're going to move forward. And then he would always say, I don't want somebody who's adverse to risk. So it was almost kind of like you had to really understand your level of risk of what you wanted to do, but also to the research behind it so that you can honestly sit in front of a crowd, whether if your project failed or succeeded, this is why I did something. Here's the results from it. And I'm okay with the learnings from that. Every time they were always like, if it failed, cool. What are you going to do about it? Move on. Next, keep going, right? They just pushed me to do that. And therefore, it helped me kind of like understand who I was. And then therefore, I built a brand around being committed to that craft of like, okay, I am okay and confident in being able to make a mistake. And therefore, it actually allows me to be a more effective leader of people that I manage eventually, to let them make mistakes and then kind of like tell my like findings from them. Therefore, Richard, he's a great leader. He's an effective leader. That's one caveat, but just making the case that whatever you're great at, hone into it, lean into it, and it's okay, but amplify that brand around it. Know where you're headed. Every time I've taken a position, or every time I was offered a recruiter, whatever the case might be, I always kind of wanted to at least outline at some point with my immediate manager, his immediate manager, or her immediate manager, whatever the case might be, where the next natural evolution was or where it needed to be. That's helped me tremendously because, it'll put you into situations and conversations that'll either put you into trainings put you in elevated conversations that are more or less like, dedicated to strategy and, kind of like just training yourself a little bit. But you have to first kind of like know where you're trying to go, but also to communicate that you do want to inevitably, evolve as a leader within this industry. But you kind of have to know where that kind of like point is. And it's not like president and CRO or something like that. Don't get caught off by that hype. Not everybody needs to be a president or VP or all that stuff. It's a lot of work at those levels, trust me. But at the end of the day, you should at least kind of like have some steps as to what a natural succession plan for yourself is. And always kind of like me making strides to kind of make sure that you kind of like carry yourself with that responsibility and understanding that that's an inevitable point because it is a very big deal. So that all being the case, I just wanted to say, and we're going to stop sharing. I am elated about today. I think that, I'm hoping that everybody learns so much from today and kind of just has this key takeaway of like being able to own the evolution of yourself, own the evolution of news media, start with the premise of who you are, and being able to kind of like just leverage your own identity, make it your own, man. Like, don't do it the way it used to be done all the time. Don't, like you'll hear that a lot, like just make it your own. It's okay. And if it's not okay today, hell, I'll promise everybody, I'm trying to make it okay today. I'm trying to make sure that everyone on this call has a future that is blatantly like just okay with everybody being okay. Like you can be committed to being yourself like every day. That's what I want. Just be committed to being yourself every day, man. And then like from there, just build your brand and build your compassion and build your fire from there. And I promise you, you will never, ever regret that. That's what I got. You guys got questions for me, Catherine? What you want to do?
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Of course.
That was super helpful for our students on the call. And a good reminder for a lot of us. A lot of us have been in student media for, 27 years, and some of us have been in student media for 27 days on this call. So, so that was a very, very good reminder. So thank you for that.